For more on the issue of food insecurity around the world, I'm joined by Taylor Wallace, Principal and CEO of the Think Healthy Group, a food science and nutrition consulting firm. He's also an adjunct professor down the street at George Mason University. Welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Thanks for having me. I'm great. I'm hanging in there.
We are reading more and more headlines. I'm sure you heard that last segment, but the situation in Ukraine, that we're not going to have wheat, we're not going to have sunflower oil, and I think a lot of people don't realize how significant that is, including myself. Tell us why we should all be watching this.
Well, right now, this is the perfect storm of many factors. So, as you just showed, we had a large drought in the Northern Hemisphere in 2021, so supplies are low anyway. We now have disrupted Black Sea exports. We have increased energy prices, which increase the cost of fertilizer and other inputs, which make food prices skyrocket. And we have increased import demand, particularly from those countries that were experiencing drought. So what we're seeing is really not surprising. The Ukraine is a breadbasket of the world. Like you said, wheat is a major export for Ukraine, and also sunflower oil. As a food scientist, I have a friend, one of my really good friends, owns a flavor house which produces all types of flavors for foods here in North America. And those flavors heavily depend on sunflower oil to be produced. And so there's going to be supply chain disruptions all over the place just because of the situation that's occurring in Ukraine currently.
One of the concerns is, look, here in the U.S., we complain that food prices cost more, and of course we all understand that. But in other countries, they may not have food at all. I mean, it's not even about the price. There may not be enough food to go around, right? What is ultimately the solution that would, I guess, alleviate this risk?
Well, right now, that's the key question. Governments across the world are trying to find solutions. For instance, the U.S. is also a very large exporter of wheat. When prices go up and things are short, we start being concerned about our own supply chains, and so we export less and we conserve more. That ends up hurting particularly lower income countries that may be suffering from drought, or maybe they just have food shortages in general. So once you disrupt one major supply chain, we're all interconnected in this world. So you see a lot of disruption that's going to occur, and unfortunately, the lower income nations and the ones that depend on those imports are going to be the first that are affected.
You know what worries me is inflation is not going away tomorrow, right? We're still going to have storms and droughts. It doesn't seem like that's going to go away. The price of fertilizer is not going away. And this situation with Ukraine and Europe, it sounds like it's going to last through the summer. So where does that lead the rest of the countries when it comes to food? Because soon you're going to miss that whole growing season. I mean, you don't get it back.
Right, it's going to be a big strain, and this is something that is not going to end for a long time. This is just the beginning that we begin to witness. And I noticed here in the U.S. the other day at the grocery store, prices of meat have went up, and that's because grains are fed to cattle and other livestock, and energy, all the not bringing in Russian oil, that's going to make those inputs go up. And so this is only the beginning, and I think economists around the world are really concerned. I know the food science community and the ones of us that deal with supply chains are extremely concerned about the welfare of everyone, because farmers up to manufacturers and distributors are all suffering and all kind of scrambling to find sunflower oil and enough wheat to have inputs into other food manufacturing processes.
Aside from sunflower oil and wheat, what other food groups should we also be worried about?
Well, grains are the big one. So the Ukraine has been the breadbasket of Eastern Europe throughout history. So grains are the big one. Sunflower oils, other vegetable oils are produced in the Ukraine. Soybeans, your staple crops, which is why the Ukraine is such an important area, right? Because they produce a lot of staple crops that we can export to lower income countries, but that we also use very universally in food products. If you take packaged goods or some of your, staple home goods, most of them contain flour, which comes from wheat or corn, things like that are staple goods. And so it's a huge supply chain disruption that we're only starting to see.
All the more reason not to waste food. Taylor, good to see you. Have a good weekend. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.